10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And we are live. How are you, Kat?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing so well, thank you. I had a lovely day, and I was just telling Kat to the audience, the audience members, if you weren't in the previous live, I took a sip of my water, and it didn't go down the right way. It went into my ear pipe, and I had such a cough. My goodness, it just reminds us, we need to be careful. Even how we swallow, and we are here with our beautiful Kat Schwarz to have a
Mindfulness is not
discussion.
everything. Exactly. That's what we've been talking about, right?
Exactly, it fits so well into the topic this evening, and we're going to talk about weight stigma. Now, before we start our session, let me read your bio to those who are tuning in. Kat Schwarz is the founder and CEO of Compassionate Healing Services, suicide prevention and complex trauma specialist. She's an accessible yoga and meditation teacher, master Reiki healer, and spirit medium, a fat activist, and a speaker. And for those of you who tuned in with us for the last couple of weeks, we have really extensively been speaking about your intuition. We've been speaking about suicide prevention. We've been speaking about why people develop anorexia and how that leads to suicide. And this evening, Kat's going to be presenting on weight stigma and really connecting that dot with why people go over into mental illnesses. So, Kat, I hand over to you. Take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that's really what keeps me so passionate about this subject, because really for me these revelations came in 2015, right? In 2015 was when I realized, after 20 years of really taking it very, very seriously, that my health was completely in my control in regards to my body weight, right? If I could just keep my body weight in a specific range, that I would be healthy, right? And I would live a long life. And that included, of course, rigorous exercise and being very restrictive in what I ate, and being very shaming of myself when I would go out of my calorie allotment for the day, or in points, as we called it in Weight Watchers, or I didn't get to the gym, or I didn't do enough as I perceived at the gym. I mean, these cause feelings of deep shame and even, guilt. And because I was so focused on restricting what I was eating and over exercising, I felt a lot of the times very dehydrated at night with a headache, and or my muscles were so sore from the grueling exercises I could barely walk or lift my children. So it really was something that I participated in very enthusiastically, because I thought that's what health looked like. And in 2015 is when I read this book, and it just completely unpacked the lie that intentional weight loss is even possible. Why do so many people keep going back to the same diets or trying different diets? Because ultimately they regain the weight, and they're constantly blaming themselves. And the authors of Intuitive Eating, which is the book that I read in 2015, really helped to shift the focus from the person to the process, right? The process of dieting is what is causing this rebound weight gain. So that for me was very revolutionary. It was and is a complete and total paradigm shift, and it needs to be examined very closely and in depth, as we've been doing this whole month, right? But as I've moved on in my own, I'm not somebody who's trying to sell packages around or workshops, and I used to be. I'll own up to that. When this first happened, I was a physical therapist. It felt like I was also a yoga teacher. Those things really went together, and I was offering workshops in the body, in the intuitive eating and body positivity. Fat positivity space. But now for me, it's more about a fundamental educational understanding and being informational about it, because this is so closely linked to my true mission with my company is suicide prevention. And how are these
Yes.
things linked, right? How are
Yeah.
dieting and suicide linked? And the answer is way too closely for comfort, right? And in several ways. One, we know that suicide is the second leading cause among people with anorexia.
Yes.
I mean, the disease itself is quite lethal, but suicide is the second leading cause because quite literally, and you had, you had said when we met on Tuesday that we
Yeah.
were joking around about today being Operation Blunt, right?
Yes. Let's be
And
blunt.
right, and I'll say we really do live in a society in which most people would rather be dead than be fat, and that's
Mm.
on how we treat fat people in our society, right? I can't blame anyone or have anything less than compassion for anyone who desires to lose weight in our society because we are so incredibly cruel to fat people. And
Yes.
we're so incredibly cruel to people who have only a little bit of extra fat on their body. Right? I mean, I was bullied starting at 12 and 13 years old as a child who had been bullied in my own home, had
Yeah.
turned to emotional eating. We talked about that last time as a
Yes.
valid way to cope, right? Had put on an understandable extra weight because of that comfort eating, and then
Yeah.
started getting bullied mercilessly at school. And it was that bullying and the fact that the boys weren't giving me the attention that some of my friends were getting that really
Yeah.
drove me at 16 years old to essentially embark on anorexia. That really was my introduction to the world of
Yeah.
weight loss, was absolutely severe restriction with my food. I mean, we're talking about, probably I only kept it up for about a month, and I was consuming so little. Let's just say that I was consuming so little that I remember my weight loss to be about 30 pounds in 1 month. And thinking all my problems would be over, right? Like problem solved, 16 years old.
Yeah.
And it just started this really nasty cycle. And luckily for me, I might not be
Yeah.
alive otherwise. I went
Yeah.
from that really restrictive eating disorder behavior to just your far more normalized everyday, everyone around you has it, disordered eating behaviors, right? Where I
Yeah.
counted every calorie and I made sure I got to the gym, and I wouldn't allow myself certain food groups without tremendous amounts of guilt associated with that, right? And I participated in that dieting binge cycle, right? So I was doing it like everyone else. It came from a place of bullying, right? And while that is real and damaging, and my own children have experienced that, and it's devastating as a mother, that's not the same thing as truly fat people in our society face in regards to, let's say, employment discrimination,
Yes.
right? Or healthcare discrimination, or a lack of accessibility in our environment when it comes to, just the size of chairs, right? In doctors' offices, no less. Although I will
Can you?
say, one of my, excuse me, sorry, I touched my computer. One of my fiance's doctors, in their office, they have the bariatric seating, which is perfect, right? The seating should be to accommodate for every body shape, right? A
Yes.
smaller body can fit into a large chair. A larger body can't fit into a small chair, right? Why aren't we including everyone in our society, right?
Yeah.
And the answer is fat phobia, or weight stigma, as it's more, I think, correctly labeled, because fat phobia
Yeah.
almost denotes this fear of fatness, right?
Yeah. What's that?
We're not we do fear fatness. We literally fear not just fat in our foods, right? High fat foods get such a bad rap, or fat foods with really any fat, except for certain, quote, healthy fats, get a bad rap, just as we're so convinced that being healthy is, that being thin and healthy are synonyms, that we literally bully and shame people of size and call it for their health. Well, we're doing this for your health. But are we really? No,
No.
we can go into that on a much deeper level. We're not. But so when we talk about the link between eating disorders or disordered even eating,
Yeah.
eating even, excuse me, and mental health disorders as severe as suicidality, they are
Mm,
directly linked. And, it
absolutely.
really was for me the root cause. I've been talking this whole time. I'll let you interrupt, Juanita. But I have much more to say on this, of course.
I love this cat. I've worked over the years and with a lot of people. And, when you do spiritual counseling and when you work in the health and the fitness and when you do the coaching, people come to you with these problems that they have. And, most of these problems come from ideologies, and they see that in social media and they see that in the friend groups. And you mentioned something very important in one of our lives, and you'll remember. You mentioned that people that actually bullied you for speaking up about these topics, oh,
Mm.
where are they now? They are in your DMs and they are seeking help. And that is ironic because they were the people that were saying, no, you shouldn't be talking about this, and this is not real. Really, I've seen that transpire over the course of the years. And if only they'd known then what they know now, they would have gone through so much less agony. Because what is the real deal here? People want to fit in. They want to fit
Yes.
in. They are programmed according to society standards. Really, these standards and these molds that are created are not there to see if their health is being promoted on a physical, spiritual, emotional, mental level. It's all about an image, and that image is an ideology. Because let's face it, not everybody on earth is in the same, they have the same shape of body. Not all of them are big boned or small boned. Not all
And
of
that's a
them look like.
beautiful thing, right? We talked about that in our
Exactly.
last live.
What's wrong with
That's a
that?
beautiful thing, that just like we
Yes.
can accept that all plants don't look alike, all trees don't
Yes.
look alike, all dogs and cats don't look alike, right?
Yes.
There's so much diversity, and that's a beautiful
Exactly.
thing,
Yeah.
right? And as the saying goes, money is the root of all evil, right? So why are we all trying to fit into this ideology?
Exactly.
Capitalism, because it sells. It
It
sells
sells an
products.
ideology.
It
Yeah.
sells products for us all to
Yes.
believe that we're supposed to look a certain way, or,
Yeah.
wear certain brands, or, have certain body shapes, or, the diet industry makes billions of dollars every year off of these lies, right? That's why the first principle of intuitive eating, like we spoke about over the last two lives, is rejecting the diet mentality. You have to get angry at the lies that you've been told, right? You are being fed lies
They're
about your
programming
weight
you.
and
Yeah.
your health in order to make rich people richer. And it
Yeah.
has absolutely, and to uphold the standards in the case of the BMI specifically, of
Yes.
white supremacy and patriarchy, which
Mm.
I fundamentally don't support, right? So
Yeah.
in my unwillingness, and the reason I get pushback from people, across racial lines even, right? And tonight I'll say I'm very excited to be appearing on a show called The Chop Up Show in the United States. It is premiering live
Yay.
7:30 Pacific Standard Time, where it's being filmed in California, and I'm on the East Coast at 10:30 p.m.
Amazing.
But we're going to talk about that in depth, about how this is really analogous to colorism
Yes.
within the Black and brown communities, right? Where
Yes.
white supremacy, the function of white supremacy has been that even within communities of color, those with
Mm.
darker skin tones are discriminated against by people
Yes.
within that same race group, yet with lighter skin colors. It's not different with this. People who hold thinner
Same
privilege
protocol.
are basically on a hierarchy above people who are fatter, and below people who are thinner. It's just yet another way
Mm.
to separate one another, and to put each other into boxes so that we keep fighting one another instead of the systems, right?
Mm.
Instead of the systems of oppression. So
Yes. Our
yeah, so
focus is
it's
off.
something that really fires me up, as you can
Yeah.
tell.
I love it when you get so passionate about it. You go, girl.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've never, to the chagrin of many, I have never let go of my passion around this because, you know, I just had such a deep understanding. Because please know that I came to this as not just a consumer of dieting. I was a Weight Watchers lifetime member, and I was very proud of that fact. You know,
Yeah.
I won't even want to calculate the amount of money that I handed off to Weight Watchers to
Yeah.
tell me how to starve myself. You know,
Yes.
but I, you know, but I also was formerly a physical therapist and a really good one. I got a 4.0 through
Background.
graduate school. I was very, very dedicated to my studies and to doing what I was taught was best for my clients. And I prescribed it as a physical therapist. I subscribed to it for myself. And thank God, before I found children, I'm sorry, before I had children is when
Yes.
or at least before my children were old enough to really learn the BS, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are born intuitive eaters, and it's only when we teach them dieting and restrictions that they'll go down that road. So
Yeah.
when I read that book in 2015, I had a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And the
Mm.
reason I was sitting in that chair, and this is another reason it's so personal to me, the reason I was even sitting in the chair for therapy after my 2 kids were, one, because motherhood levels you. You know, if you're a mother, you know, or a parent, you know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
You know, it just brings up all your triggers and your shadows, and you're forced to deal with you.
Yeah.
But also, my second birth had been very traumatic, and I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, and you know, was taking medication, and yet, even though I was brand new to mothering 2 people, I had a, a a marriage on the decline. We ultimately got divorced in 2021. There was a lot going on in my personal life that was just really heavy. My number one goal was weight loss. I had to lose this weight because, again,
That
blunt,
self-worth was
it felt like
connected to
if
that.
I
Yeah.
didn't lose the baby weight, then I could simply never feel good again, right? I would never look in the mirror and feel happiness, right? Like, so it just felt so absolutely
Yeah.
necessary for me to lose this weight. And, you know, but at that point I had been dieting actively for 20 years and it just wasn't working anymore. My body was really rebelling against it.
Starts to plateau after a while. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was on 2 diets as I prepared to be a bridesmaid and fit into a specific dress, and I was gaining weight, even though I really was adhering to the diet because my body was just so sick of being starved. It was finding ways to keep the weight on or just not let it budge, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, your body's smarter than you, and thank goodness it is.
Yes. Thank
Right?
God for that.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. You know, Kat, your experience with this really holds. It holds everything together because if you had been here giving just the experience, you know, the knowledge that you've gained in the scientific world, and you were talking about studies of other people, and you know the things that they'd gone through, it would also matter, and it would also be, you know, hold weight, but because you've gone through this yourself, you went through that for 20 years, you're a mom, you went through that, you've seen the light, you have a happy healthy lifestyle, you feel comfortable with who you are, your passion is to help people, your passion is to prevent suicide. That's the main thing, you know, that you promote. Because you've gone through that, people relate to you, and people are more likely to listen to what you're saying than they would if they would pick up a book and just read an article. Most likely it would impact them for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or maybe 2 days, and they'd forget that information. But because you are here and you've been through that, you've done that, and you came out on the other side in a much healthier state on all levels, that speaks to people, because people don't want to hear you know, or read in the magazines anymore. They want to be able to speak to someone or to hear someone's story, and that's why there's such a heavy focus on this topic. I come back to the fact, and this is something that Kat experienced. The people that were bullying her by talking about all of the topics that she's listing here, all of the topics that she's integrating, those are the very same people who realize they'd also been on that, and me included. I was in the diet culture for a long time, and that really grasped us actually after we've had our first child. That's where it starts. That's where the mentality starts and the programming comes in.
Because there's a
Those
lot of
people are the people
pressure
who
and
follow you
programming,
now.
like you said, right
Yeah.
around the bounce back, and we
Yes.
put these poor celebrity mothers who are just put
Yes.
on either praised or
Oh,
ridiculed depending on
yeah.
how quickly
So
their
wrong.
specific body lets go of weight, and it's so
Yeah.
individual, right? I mean,
Mm.
100 people could eat the same way and not look anything alike.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Now I love that, and it comes back to the human mind. I'd say some people, the more you work on your mental state of mind, the more people work on the emotional intelligence. We touched a little bit on that in our belief in our interview and in some of the lives. The more they realize that people have different viewpoints. I mean, I did this exercise with people in the church when I was still pastoring full time as an ordained pastor. And the one Sunday, I sat. I made a beautiful table. It was a communion table, and I put a vase and everything on it. And I asked 4 people to describe that table, and not one of them. It's the same thing that they are looking at, but not one of them described it in the same way. The one was focused on the beautiful loaves of bread that looked so fresh and inviting. The other one was focused on the vase. The other one loved the tablecloth. The other one was like, oh, I love the red color of the wine. It really. So, what's the point? We all have different viewpoints, we all have different worldviews, and we are diverse. Not everybody's going to see things the same way.
And
And that's important to remember.
we're all literally having completely unique perceptual experiences at all
Exactly.
times, right? What a perfect
Embrace that.
example to be looking at the same thing and being perceiving or picking up on
Yeah.
completely different things about it, right? There is nothing about us that's supposed to be the same. We are a completely unique expression of the energy of, we could call God or universe, or
Yes.
you know that we are all connected to, right?
Yeah.
We're meant to be all different. What is the stat where the chances of you being born, specifically you, or something like 1 in 4 trillion, right?
Exactly. That's
There will
amazing.
never be anybody like you. There's never been
Ever.
anyone like you on earth, and there will never be anyone exactly like you on earth again.
Love that.
Isn't that a beautiful thing? Right? So why are we
Beautiful.
trying to even be the same? Right? I don't want to fit
Yes.
in anymore. That's the major
Yeah.
difference between Kathleen. I used to go by Kathleen when I was really up until I met my partner, but
Yeah.
and she wanted so desperately to fit in, right, to be
Mhm.
like everybody else and not be different. And I didn't even want attention on me at my own wedding. I was very uncomfortable that everyone was staring at me, and I had to kind of
Oh,
remind myself, like, oh, it's because I'm in this
really?
white dress. It felt like I was the only one who showed up to the costume party in
Mhm.
costume, right? Like, and whereas now
We
I
all feel
I
like that.
I
Yeah.
celebrate my individuality and my
Mm,
uniqueness,
mm,
and that's come
beautiful.
from developing a lot of thick skin for being bullied about it, really my entire
Mm,
life.
yeah.
And and it's taken, I know a lot of people push back on, that the things that are traumatic or really difficult that we go through would make us stronger. And that's not necessarily true, because not everyone has access to resilience.
Oh,
Resilience
yes.
it's
Oh,
resilience from trauma that makes us stronger, but
yeah.
resilience or healing is a privilege, as I've said so many
Yes.
times. Not so many of us
Absolutely.
don't have access to the tools that allow for healing, right?
Yeah.
Or to pivot back to our original topic around weight stigma and
Yes.
specifically discrimination against fat bodies, you know, um, we can't change the fact that we live in a very weight centric society right now,
Yes.
and that people of size, especially the larger the size, the more people are subjected to daily discrimination and bullying from not just their society and even their
Mm,
own families, but their own doctors, right? We don't provide healthcare in the United States unless you're a certain BMI. That's the sad truth. We don't
Oh
provide
my
quality care.
goodness.
Otherwise, it's
That is
farmed out as a weight loss problem. And,
mm,
and that is problematic on so many levels, right?
mm,
And it's harmful for thin and fat patients alike, because
yes.
just like a lot of cancer screens are missed in fat patients because their
Yeah.
symptoms are not taken seriously, right? Every single thing is
They just say
chalked up to weight.
brush off. Yeah.
Right. So there are countless examples of fat patients being diagnosed with huge tumors after being told, oh, you just need to lose weight. Right.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
and then also on the flip side of that, of thin patients not being, my own fiance, who's very petite, she experienced this recently at the cardiologist, where
Mm,
she was having some very real and concerning heart problems, to the point
yeah.
where she'd gone to the hospital over it and been referred to a cardiologist. But because of her thinness and her age of 36, the cardiologist was just absolutely confident. There's just no way that you have a heart problem. And then the
Oh my
doctors are telling
goodness.
a different story. So it's like we're not being taken, we're not being
Seriously.
given quality healthcare by putting the focus
Preconceived.
on weight, which is an inaccurate and
Yeah.
honestly
Condition.
outdated measure of health. It really needs
Yes.
to be removed from the equation altogether.
Absolutely. Audience, you hear what Kat is saying, you hear what we are discussing. Kat mentioned it earlier in this week, and I thought it was brilliant. She said, now we are in blunt mode. So you're gonna join us on the lives, everyone, and you're gonna hear it bluntly stated, because the time for sugarcoating is over. The time for just going around the bush and not really getting to the point is over. Kat is here to bring the solid and the honest truth to you about what she's been through, and her whole mission is to help people to live a healthy and a happy lifestyle, and do so in comfort and not be stigmatized. And of course, she is fully and completely vested in helping suicide prevention measures. So tune in with us. We're going to be going live on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Any final words, my dear friend?
Yeah, I want to drive home a particularly what's the word? Excuse me, troubling statistic that I read just yesterday as we decided on the topic for today's live. And it's that when we talk about weight stigma itself being deadly, right? Because let's deconstruct this idea that supposedly people are being bullied because of their weight so that they become more healthy, right? Well, weight stigma in and of itself is associated with a 60% increased risk of death. And that's independent of a person's BMI, which means that the recipient of weight stigma, regardless of their actual weight, right? That person might be living in a very fat body, and that person might be in a still thin privileged body, but with God forbid fat rolls rather than visible abs, as become so popular in our society, right? And be the receiver of discrimination. That factor in it alone makes them at higher risk for death. So does that sound healthy? Right? Does it sound healthy that we should be bullying people into becoming thinner, or
Never.
to fitting into a specific ideal, and doing that not just through words but also through lack of accommodations, right? Like, well, if you can't sit in this doctor's office, you're not welcome here. Right?
No.
So
That's going down the wrong road. Yeah.
as I said, I'm in Operation Blunt, and also, to the chagrin of everyone, yes, I am still talking about this.
We love it. We love it. That's why we're here. And you're doing
I'm
such
just
great
getting
work.
started. This was just the topic of the month, and then throughout our time together, Juanita, which will be a long relationship, I'm sure.
Yes.
We'll get into so many other facets of of how my specific experiential journey has brought me to the understandings that I have today, and to what I hope to be a part of, helping to collaborate and create to really improve mental health care, right? Improve physical health care, because we cannot unlink the two.
No, they will forever be interconnected. There you have it, audience. Kat has some wonderful presentations for you next week as well. And we are just looking forward to growing and learning more. Thank you so much, Kat. We appreciate you and for bringing your experience here and for saying it like it is. We are loving Stage Blunt. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Get used to it.
Yes. We'll see you all next time.
I'm a divisive person. People either like me or don't like me, but they're not neutral.
Well, we're not here to fit in, so
I'm not here to fit in, and I'm not for everyone, and everyone's not for me. So we'll leave it at that.
That's life. That's life. But we adore you here, on this platform at Particulars, and we're gonna grow.
The admiration is mutual.
Thank you, my dear friend. I'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're the #1 fastest growing community and tribe of some of the highest level entrepreneurs all around the country and around the world. We're in 36 states across the U.S., in 11 international countries, and over 240 plus members, growing every single day. And I'm honored, excited, and I'm glad to say that I'm proud to be the official sponsor of the Meticulous Moments podcast with Juanita Cap. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm excited for this journey.
Hey everybody, my name is Patrick Rude. I'm the owner of Rude Financial Services, a proud sponsor of the Meticulous Moments podcast, hosted and directed by the beautiful, strong, and intelligent Juanita Cap. I cannot tell you enough about what this woman has done with this podcast and the effect that she has had on me and all of the other sponsors and people that listen. Don't miss it.